been a long time since my face has appeared on this YouTube channel. It's been a thing I've been putting off for a very long time. My previous first car video done very well. I didn't expect it to do as well as it done. It's had loads of really nice comments, loads of likes, and everybody's been really supportive with it. Now it is getting on for being longer than a year ago that I last uploaded that video, and since then I've managed to do a lot more miles in this car, getting on for 12,000 now in the last 12 to 18 months. So I've certainly learnt my way around the car, learnt how I drive, as well as how to manage the car and myself on the road in lots and lots of different environments, whether that's motorways, A roads, B roads, city centres. It's all little bits of knowledge that just build up over time to make you a more professional and better driver. So what this video is going to be about is just a bit of a roundup of my first year as a new driver, what I've learnt, what are the lessons that I've learnt, what are some of the habits I've picked up over those 12 months, and just how I've kind of built myself into my own form of a driver. Because when you leave a test centre, you're the fixed, safe default, if you want to put it that way, a safe driver capable of passing a test. But when you're out here on your own in different environments, you learn how you drive and all your specific characteristics. So I think one of the biggest things with driving in my first year is kind of just generally getting out there and trying to drive as much as possible. Because if you're not going to get out there and drive, you're not going to learn anything, let's be honest. So I've driven in all the different environments that you could, whether that be city centres, motorways, dual carriageways, all that sort of thing. And through those different experiences, you learn so much about, firstly, yourself and how you cope with a different environment. And also, you also learn about how people around you drive. And I think that's almost an even bigger point, because if you're taking in what other people are doing around you, firstly, you're learning from them what not to do, and also you're anticipating what others are going to do, which, let's be honest, is going to make you an even better driver, because you're anticipating what they're going to do. You're seeing a car driving a bit too slowly for the speed limit, and you're thinking, right, what are they going to do next? What might I not predict them to do? In which case, you slow down, you're a bit more gentle. Driving in these different environments also helps you to build up your confidence. All the different kind of scenarios, situations, different types of junctions, roundabouts, traffic lights, lanes to be in. It's all a massive learning curve whenever you try something new. Now, I've driven in a couple of city centres. I've driven in and around central London. I've driven around around Brighton. There's so much going on around you in terms of, firstly, what you've got to look for. London is covered in cameras, so you've got to be very careful of that. You've got to be ultra sure about what lane you're going to be in, and also just predicting what other cars are doing around you. Is someone going to pull into your lane? Is someone going to pull out on you? It makes you think a lot more. It makes you think ahead. Also makes you a lot more confident. And I think confidence is key in driving, because if you appear to be quite a nervous driver on the road, you can kind of appear to be unsafe, because I think there's a difference between a very safe driver and a good driver. You can, on paper, be a very, very safe driver, but to other road users, you might look quite inconfident and just not very comfortable on the road itself, and that can be quite a big downfall. And again, on motorways, you have to be confident in changing lanes and checking your mirrors and seeing where people are around you, because if you're not, you're just going to be a nervous wreck all the time. And if you're a nervous wreck on the motorway, I think that could potentially be quite a deadly combination.
Now, I think let's have a quick chat about kind of the financial stuff behind being a first year driver. Now, as I mentioned very briefly at the end of my first video, I did have a black box on this for the first year. Now, also, being a Mini, the insurance group is very low. So my insurance was actually less than £1,000. Not a lot less than £1,000, but still less than £1,000, which for a first year isn't too bad. Now, having a black box was also quite good because it kept me safe on the road. Luckily, my black box wasn't too restricting. I know some black box companies kind of can put curfews on, they can limit how many miles you can drive, but mine was only speed, cornering, braking and acceleration. Now, they didn't limit me too much, but it kept me kind of sane. It stopped me from doing anything too stupid. I don't think I would have been the type of person to go out and start doing donuts in a car park and that sort of thing, but it did keep me safe for that first year. Now I am without it. The black box company gave me a renewal quote. It didn't really cut a lot off my second year, so I changed provider, and now I'm paying just over $650 a year without a black box, which I think is pretty good, to be honest. Obviously, insurance is very subjective. It depends on where you live. It depends on how you're keeping your car, if it's on the road, if it's in a garage, if it's on a driveway. But considering where I live, it's a very, very good price, and also it doesn't really give me a mileage limit, so I can go out and do another 10,000, 20,000 miles in the next year, which is great. Now, at the start of the ownership, it did cost me a few bits and pieces in repairs, but I'll probably go into that in another video, because inherently these engines on this car, the N16 engine derived from Peugeot originally, is quite a unreliable engine if it's not looked after properly. It gets through a lot of oil, that sort of things, but as long as you keep on top of the maintenance, it's a decent engine. It's a decently strong engine, but towards the beginning of my ownership, it did cost me a little bit in a few repairs. But yeah, I'll go into that in a different video.
I've done a lot of driving with different amounts of people in the car. Now, ultimately, when you get your first car, you're going to want to take your mates out in it, which I did straight away. And what I did learn straight away is having different people in the car can seriously affect how you drive. Not only how you drive personally, but also how the car behaves. Now, this is quite a light car, it's quite an underpowered car. Now, when you've got 4 people up in this, the weight difference is massive. Now, what I noticed straight away is the brakes. Now that you've got more weight in the car, those brakes have got more job to do. So they're then working even harder. Now, that's the thing I noticed straight away when simply pulling up to junctions. You're having to push a lot harder on the brakes than you normally would have to. And also just general distraction when you've got other people in the car. Now, over time, you just learn to manage it, but in the first few months, when you're still learning about how you drive and how the car drives itself, it can be quite distracting having other people in the car, in which case having things like music on, that sort of thing, maybe isn't the best combination to have. But over time, you just get used to how you drive. The car can almost become an extension of yourself, and it just becomes more relaxing and like walking, really. Driving becomes like walking. So in which case, having more people in the car, having music on, isn't too much of a big deal. It's just a case of learning and getting round those initial distractions. I think another thing as well is learning from mistakes. I think in my first week of driving, I made more mistakes than I have since. And sure, those mistakes might have been quite embarrassing, but you learn so much from it, and you're like, right, I know what I have to do now to not do that again, and how to minimize that potential mistake happening again. Another thing is just the general clutch control. There was a couple of instances in the first week of owning the car where I just couldn't get my head around the clutch. The clutch on this car is very heavy. Any car that I've driven since, the clutch feels ridiculously light. And also the biting point is very, very high on the pedal itself. So you're always kind of on that knife edge of stalling and pulling away perfectly. But again, it's just one of those things you get used to over time. Now, going back to my point that I said earlier about the car kind of becoming an extension of me. Now, what I mean by that is just how natural over time driving can become, like walking. As you learn how everything works, as in what sort of gear to be in for a certain type of road, how the car's going to react in wet or dry conditions, what's the turning like, how does it react to bumps, all that sort of thing. it just gives you a lot more confidence in the car itself. And that's why things like having people in the car, having music in the car, can kind of, it doesn't matter as much over time because you're just used to driving. Now, this car itself is very, very good in terms of handling for a car that technically isn't sporty. The wheels are located right on the extremities of the car, so it's a very boxy profile. And also I'm sat very low, which makes the centre of gravity really low. And also it just throwing it into a few corners. Sure, there's not a lot of power, but you learn how to manage the gears, and that's where you build up a momentum on the road. Now, momentum in a car like this is very important because you don't have a lot of power to kind of pull yourself around the corners. So in keeping that momentum, you need to be as smooth as possible. Now, whether that be softly braking, softly turning into the bends, it just helps the car flow down a road more confidently. And also being sat right in the centre of the wheelbase, me being sat also very low, the weight distribution is really, really good in this car. So that's why it gives you that kind of go-kart feel, kind of point and squirt through the corners. And having a lot of power, I think, has done me good as a driver because it's forced me to be kind of smooth and gentle down a nice flowing road, rather than just power on, power off, hard on the brakes, that sort of thing. So I think, on the whole, this car has taught me to be a relatively good driver. Now, I'm not calling myself Lewis Hamilton or anything like that because I know what a good driver is, and I'm not near that. But for someone driving in their first year, this car, I think, is great for building up that confidence and just how to handle a car on the open road. So I think my final point on this kind of year roundup of me as a new driver, I think, is to just generally be the nice guy on the road. I think that's a relatively good way of summing it up. And what I'm kind of meaning by that is to just kind of firstly be respectful of yourself, keep yourself safe, be respectful of the car, not be ragging it absolutely everywhere all of the time, and also just to be kind of general and courteous to other people on the road. It kind of goes back to looking ahead and predicting what other people are going to do. If you can see that someone is nudging out of a junction, rather than speeding up to get past them and honking your horn at the same time, just drop back and let them out. Like, I don't see the problem in doing that. And by doing that, they're happy, you're happy, it's a lot calmer, there's no chance of any collisions or road rage or anything like that. It's just general courtesy on the road. And I think you can watch all these dash cam videos on Facebook and YouTube and what have you, and it's ridiculous how some people react to other drivers on the road. And if you just kind of take a step back, take in what other people are doing, just appreciate your surroundings and the car itself, and I don't think you're going to have too much of an issue as a driver. Hopefully what I've had to say in this video has helped you out somewhat in maybe driving in your first year or owning your first car. I've simply been relaying my experiences for the last 12 months and what I've learnt. So hopefully it's been of some help to you. If it has, hopefully more videos will be to come soon, so do be sure to subscribe. But for now, thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you again very soon.